Hello and welcome to another episode of Brit and Poland. This week's background will be Moranów. This area of Warsaw, well, it was pretty much the home for the Jewish ghettos back during World War II. But this is not going to focus on that. I will do a video about Moranów and its history at some point. But to be honest, I felt I wanted to address a topic which is gaining a lot of traction lately. So in my recent video where I was saying, well, the issues I see with the UK basically, I wanted to kind of reflect on why Poland is not going through these issues and why I think Poland is somewhat insulated from these issues as well. So I hope it will be an interesting video. Some of the content may overlap a little bit with my safety in Poland video, but I think there'll be enough original stuff here to keep you focused. So please enjoy. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. With this channel, I travel across the country, I bring you the culture, and I show you just how amazing Poland is. So I invite you on my journey. If you want to see more, I have Facebook and Instagram profiles, which you will find links to in the description below. And if you want to really help out, you can turn to my Patreon or Patronite accounts, again in the description. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Do zobaczenia. So let's talk a bit of background. So Poland was off the map for 123 years. And this was the result of basically Germany, Austria, Russia, and their various allies all ganging together on Poland from all sides. You could say it's a similar situation to what Israel faces now. And during this time, there was an attempt to eliminate all Polish culture, to even eliminate the Polish language. And well, Poland didn't take it lying down. You know, of course, they were fighting to the end. They had many victories, but also ultimately many losses in their campaign to keep their country independent. But even when Poland fell, the Polish people, instead of giving up, they went underground. And they would form this kind of separate society, which allowed them to produce newspapers, do teaching, effectively keep the Polish people alive during these times. Now, when I did my previous video, which is a follow-up to, there are a lot of comments saying, "You Brits, you don't know real communism." And that's because Poland, well, they, for a time, were basically a communist country. They were, let's say, a satellite state of the Soviet Union. They saw tanks on the streets. They saw their resources being plundered, their people being used almost like slave labor. They know what communism really looks like. And as I commented in my previous video, what we're experiencing in the West, or let's say the westernized world, is this kind of woke phenomenon. And some people would argue that what has it got to do with communism? Well, I would defer you to Konstantin Kisin. So he was raised in the, let's say, Soviet Republic and left for the UK, so he has a pretty good understanding of these things. But it is all about brainwashing of the people. And this has been done in the UK, for example, in multiple ways, to make everyone think that they're racist, to make everyone be unable to question what is going on around them. And it's even reached the state where some of those who question what is going around them are finding life very, very difficult. Jobs may be taken away from them, and the worst examples, they may be put in prison. Now, this isn't quite reaching, let's say, you know, the full levels of the communist state. but you could say it's an early start. And so Poland, because they have this experience with this, you could say they know what to look out for. And they're less susceptible to that type of propaganda. And of course, there is still propaganda in Poland. There's propaganda in pretty much every country. If you think there isn't, then yeah, you may want to re-educate yourself on that. And likewise, a lot of people were saying in the last video how corrupt the Polish government is. I'm not going to put a severe comment on that one. I have been told various things by various people. And my response to that is, firstly, is there a government in the world who doesn't have some form of corruption? I don't think you'll find a straight answer to that one. And secondly, the kind of corruption that people are seeing, how much is it really a detriment to the country at this point, and how is it impacting the people? And perhaps people would like to educate me on that in the comments, so please feel free. But there is definitely something about the government which is keeping this country safe, and let's talk about that in the next segment. So obviously, Poland is a member of the European Union, and some people would say that is the European Union's biggest success story. A country that was very much in poverty suddenly found itself becoming quite prosperous. Now, Poland is by no means kind of like on the same level as, I don't know, Germany, for example. You just have to look at wages to really state that. But one thing that Poland has benefited from is a lot of funds from the European Union. And people might argue, why would they get that money? You know, a lot of people in the Brexit campaign were saying, why are we sending, so much money to places like Poland? Well, you need to learn a bit of history that might explain this. So at the end of the Second World War, when when Poland was kind of left the burned out shell that it was, you have to take into account that most of Poland was destroyed either by the German or the Russian forces. So much as you're seeing in modern day Ukraine now, Poland was effectively going through the same, and you may even say worse. So obviously a lot of stuff was looted from Poland, a lot of art, a lot of gold, so the country was very much like impoverished by the war, as well as, of course, the insane loss of life and destruction of property. And there was a vote to decide what would happen to Poland, where countries like the UK and France basically voted to give it to Russia. And this was quite a betrayal of the Polish people. And Russia, they came in and they said, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild the country. It's going to be magnificent. It was all a bit of a propaganda campaign. So while they did rebuild, they would rebuild things like the Palace of Science and Culture first as a symbol, rather than as a, needed housing. But anyway, that's going off the point. One of the things that Russia did when they came into power here is when the discussion of reparations for Poland came up in the United Nations, or whichever body was involved then, basically what happened is Russia said, no, Poland doesn't need that money, we're going to take care of it. So Poland was robbed basically of the reparations that it was due after World War II. So that's your justification for Poland receiving EU funds now. It's kind of overdue reparations. However, again, I may be going slightly off topic, but I felt the context would be useful. So Poland is a member of the EU. However, it is a kind of, it's the odd child of the European Union in that it refuses to follow all European laws, diktats, regulations. And this was something that actually kind of, I was quite proud of Poland before I moved here. I was like, oh, look, they're saying no, to, like, well, let's get to the point. They said no to receiving vast waves of refugees from culture. Well, let's quantify that from cultures which are not, let's say, compatible with Polish values. Of course, Poland did more and is continuing to do more than its fair share with people from Ukraine. So Poland basically said, we're not going to take in people from the third world. We're only going to take people in that benefit the Polish economy. And so you could say Poland kind of had the best of both worlds, being in the EU, getting the money from that, gaining the free movement to allow its citizens to travel, but at the same time saying no to the points from the European Union which would cause it harm. So this is one of the things. And you have modern day politicians like Dominik Tarczynski and Ewa Zarankowska-Hernik, I think, who I've seen give some very, very strong speeches in the European Parliament. And yeah, in fact, Ewa did a very, very scathing attack on Ursula not too long ago, which I thought was spot on. And Dominic is going around the world basically defending Poland's position and highlighting why Poland is such a safe and beautiful country. So yeah, there'll be a lot of people on the left that see politicians like this and hate them. But let's be honest, it's a lot of the left that has caused the problems that we have now. Not all of the left, there are some perfectly sensible and lovely people on the left, but let's say the extreme left are quite demonic in what they've become. So I'm going to raise a few more points, but I think that covers that section fairly well. So let's talk about some other factors which you could say are putting Poland aside from the rest of Europe at the moment. Well, sorry, the rest of Western Europe. So in Poland, basically, if you're a newcomer, you don't get put onto benefits like in the UK. So, I mean, the UK benefits bill is, well, something like a third of the national spending. Maybe that's wrong, but that's the impression I get. It's certainly insanely high. So you're not having that drain from the state on such a high level because people that come to Poland, well, there are a lot of expectations for people that come here. So when you talk to kind of Polish people, and a lot of people have said this in the comments, people are welcome to Poland, but with conditions. So obviously the government says that they have to have a certain amount of money to support themselves, and those quotas aren't so high, but it means that you need to be earning, and you need to prove that earning. So you don't get so much of like a, let's say, a foreign black market emerging as you do in the UK. People are expected to respect the values of the Polish people. And this is a key thing that a lot of countries seem to forget, that there are a lot of countries that are very different. A lot of ideologies they carry which are very different to what we have in the West. In the UK, it's my main example. That's why certain practices such as, you know, the horrific grooming gangs and the murder of children and the stabbing of people are becoming quite sadly and horrifically commonplace. There's also a lot more respect for women in Poland, though some may argue that that's a bit undermined by the situation with abortion in this country at the moment. I'm not going to dwell on that in this video, but perhaps I will talk about it in future. But yes, so people are expected to come and to have the same values in order to fit into society. And if they don't have those values, they're quickly shown, they're quickly shown what happens when you don't have these values. You also have the situation where obviously the money you earn in Poland is a lot less than you would in other countries. So you don't get the people coming here who are looking for, you know, get rich quick schemes so that they can earn lots of money and send it back to their home countries, because, you know, in Poland you could be earning, like, say, half of what you would get in the UK or Germany for doing the same kind of work. So there's that factor. You also have the Polish language. Now, the Polish language is very much a challenge. It's one of the most difficult languages in the world. I mean, I did 2 years worth of private tutoring to learn Polish, and even now my level is still not great. I'll be completely honest. It's something that I am attempting to improve, but unfortunately the cost of lessons is going up. So I am looking at solutions there. And also I hope to get Polish citizenship, which you will not get if you do not have a certificate in Polish. So there are, let's say, various barriers to entry into Poland for your, like, say, typical immigrant or refugee that you wouldn't have so much in the West. So I want to elaborate on a point I made, that Polish people will let you know when your values are not compatible here. And that's because Polish people, they don't put their heads in the sands and pretend that there aren't issues. So if a Polish person is seeing someone like being attacked in the street or something like that, they will often intervene. If they see someone committing a crime, they will often intervene. You know, add on top of that the fact that you have, like, armed police in this country, and you see them fairly regularly, especially in the town centre. And every time I see the police, they're pretty much stopping someone and speaking to them, which is, yeah, some people argue there aren't enough police here, but when you compare it to, say, the UK, it's like, to me, it seems a lot. But yes, so yeah, you do have that attitude that people aren't just going to stand by and let crime happen in this country. Of course, some crime does happen. I mean, there's no place that's crime-free, but people will do something about it. And if you're acting in an inappropriate way, you're going to have some guys come up to you and ask you what you're doing. And if you don't give the right answer, well, you may end up in a bit of trouble. And I think the laws are a little bit more relaxed here on what people can get away with in those situations. So one other important point that you could say helps Poland be insulated is because they've always been, well, pretty much always been the victim in history. Of course, they were very strong during the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and of course Poland had to expand from somewhere. But you could say most of modern history, Poland has been very much the victim. And so there isn't this kind of stigma with the history which is impacting other countries. So, Germany carries this national guilt about, well, World War One, World War Two. I think they should be ashamed of wiping out the Romans as well, but that's maybe going back a bit far. The UK carries this national shame about the empire. America with slavery and, like racism in the past. A lot of these countries, they carry this kind of national guilt. And by the way, Sweden, you should feel ashamed about your massive siege of Poland those few hundred years ago. But Poland doesn't have this guilt. And even though I personally think that you should look at the full picture. So with the UK, for example, people, say, oh, they plundered these countries, they enslaved the people. You can also look at it in this way. England ended slavery in the Western world, and they pretty much spent all of the resources of the empire doing that. So you could say that was one of its first woke movements in a way, in a positive sense. And people don't seem to actually acknowledge that. Secondly, I have a number of friends from India, and I'm always joking with them. Like they joke, it's like, oh, you enslaved our country. And I'm like, yes, but we gave you cricket. And they like cricket very much. And we always have a good chuckle about that. So it wasn't, a pure negative state. There were definitely some benefits that the empire brought, including education, organization, rule of law, transport and communication networks. There were a lot of positive things, and people seem to want to forget about those. And they want to see history in a very black and white way, which is not how history works, by the way. People aren't universally bad or universally good. Well, except maybe the Nazis. I think we can say that they were universally bad, to be honest. I can't defend them at all. And by the way, Elon Musk is not a Nazi. Because somebody raises their arm does not mean that they are doing a Nazi salute. But, you carry on with that, Fred, and the rest of the world will just keep laughing at you for commenting that. Anyway, another important factor, you could say, is a kind of a national pride that the people have in this country. And I called it kind of nationalist in a previous video. A lot of people corrected me and said, really, I should have used the word like patriotic. So fair enough. Even my English isn't perfect sometimes, I guess. So good luck, all of those learning. And, it does stem from what I was saying in the beginning, that, there was this attempt to destroy Poland. So the Polish people, they built up this resilience and this strength in their culture, which basically emboldened them to have pride in their culture. They wanted their culture to survive. They didn't want to be eradicated as a nation, as a people. So that's why you find that you have a lot of traditions in Poland that survive to this day. So sure, some of them may be watered down, but you do have, a lot of bank holidays in Poland compared to other countries, because they are honoring those traditions and honoring, let's say, the milestones that have allowed, Poland to be what it is now. And so as a, kind of side effect on this, you have people who are very proud to keep the Polish borders secure. And, you have the wall against Belarus, as I've said in the previous video. I think Germany have now more or less put guards on the border with their side. And with, Slovakia and Czech Republic, you have the mountains as a kind of natural barrier. And with Ukraine, well, I think that's also heavily monitored as well. But so there isn't that fear, to protect the borders, because they know what can happen if they're not protected. And in fact, you're finding that the spending now in the military is going up, mainly to counteract what's happening from Russia. And you're going to find that those borders become more and more, defended as time goes by. And soldiers are actually losing their lives defending these borders. There was one chap who very sadly lost his life, I think only recently, when one of the migrants took effectively a big pole or a kind of javelin-like thing that stuck it through the fence that impaled this soldier. So these people are doing very brave work, in my opinion. There are, of course, some people that slip through, though they often get lost in the woods. And you do have some agencies that are trying to help these people. But ultimately, when you have all of these people being pushed by Russia and Belarus for, let's say, political disharmony, should you be taking them in? My personal thought is that Poland has the right frame of mind on this one. I'm going to kind of end this video by highlighting some of the, let's say, the worries that people have. And I've mainly seen these through the comments on my videos, because there are a lot of people that, well, as sensibly, they don't trust politicians. I think anyone who trusts politicians, well, you need to be very careful and to keep a very close eye on what they're doing. So we have Donald Tusk in charge of Poland now, and a lot of people cite the fact that he's very, very heavily, ingrained into the European Union. So far, as to my understanding, he is still rejecting things such as migrant quotas. But there are a lot of Polish people that think he's already given in on that. Time will tell. But another thing to worry about is complacency, and not to let, let's say, the spread of kind of negative ideologies slip in, as we've seen in the UK. The Polish people are quite negative. They complain a lot. They're quite sarcastic. A lot of their memes and their humor is very dark. But at the same time, it's kind of, I'm not sure, but it's kind of a defensive wall. Once you get past that, you see that they're actually quite proud people and quite fun people. But to get back to the point, so Poland does need to watch out. Some people kind of say that Poland, in terms of, let's say, way of thinking, way of culture, some would say even taste in music, is about 20 years behind the rest of the West. I think it's catching up very quickly in those regards, but I'm just hoping that people are watching what is happening to countries like the UK, like Sweden, like the Netherlands, like Germany, like France, to name but a few. We can also add Canada, Australia, the US, most of the developed world, in fact. I hope that the people are paying attention to what is happening in these countries and how they are in this form of decline. And they learn from this, that they don't let the same kind of problems seep into their culture. And I think for the reasons I've kind of said in this video, I think that is what will insulate Poland. Maybe not forever, but certainly long enough to hopefully the rest of the madness to go away. But we'll see. But yeah, another one of my long walking videos. in perhaps maybe not the most glamorous district of Warsaw, but certainly an interesting one when you think of history. But I hope you've enjoyed, and as always, please like the video, feel free to subscribe, and of course feel free to share your comments, your views. Maybe you disagree with what I'm saying, maybe you agree but want to add to a point I've made. Thank you very much for watching. Do zobaczenia.